Hi, I'm Robin Paggi, Training and Development Specialist with WorkLogic HR, a human resources outsourcing company right here in Bakersfield. For the most part, my job is spent creating and delivering workshops for supervisors to help them be better at their job. And while this is a great position for me, I didn't get it right out of school. It took a long time to get here. So today I want to tell you some words of wisdom that I learned from my journey to help you on yours. Once upon a time, I graduated from California State College, Bakersfield. Yes, it was still called a college back then. I think I was in the last class that graduated before the name changed. I was a communications major, and I decided before graduation that I wanted to be a college professor. Of course, I wasn't qualified to be a college professor upon graduation, but I still thought I would get a great job making great money. Well, the job I ended up getting was as a secretary, which, no offense to secretaries, was not what I had in mind. It was also at half the pay I expected. So my first piece of advice for you is to lower your expectations, especially because you're graduating during a pandemic or its aftermath. I know that doesn't sound very encouraging, but it's important to be realistic. Whatever job you're going to be able to get is going to teach you all sorts of valuable things if you let it. As I said, I started out as a secretary and I was a lousy one, mostly because the job didn't match my personality style. So my second piece of advice is to find a job that matches your personality style. Now, I didn't know much about personality styles back then. All I knew was that I was bad at a job that I didn't like. I learned a lot about personality styles in the last 20 years, especially the Myers-Briggs type indicator, which I now use in training and coaching. We don't have time for me to tell you much about it, but I encourage you to go online and complete a questionnaire that can tell you more about your type and jobs that you're best suited for based upon your personality. Just Google MBTI and you'll find it. After a couple of years, I enrolled in graduate school at CSU Sacramento, intent on becoming a college professor. And upon my graduation, I did get a job teaching at a college, but it was at San Joaquin Valley College. And the reason that I got the job there was because I had known the college director since I was a teenager. Then a friend I made when I came back to town had a friend who taught at Bakersfield College, which was where I really wanted to teach. My friend's friend suggested I make an appointment with the communication department chair to introduce myself. I did, and 2 weeks later, a pregnant faculty member went on emergency maternity leave, and I ended up finishing her classes for that semester. I was rewarded by being given an adjunct position there. My words of wisdom are that it's important to make connections because, as the saying goes, it's often not what you know, but who you know that gets you where you want to go. I was on my way to getting my dream job as a full-time college professor, but I kept getting passed over for a full-time position. Then another connection that I met at the gym led me in a slightly different direction. I was invited to be a training consultant for the Kern Community College District. This is my first professional photo as a trainer, and this is another piece of advice. Have a plan, but go where life leads you, because sometimes you end up just where you should be. It was sometimes a bumpy ride getting to where I am now, but I encourage you to be grateful for the bumps too. Unfortunately, most of our best life lessons are difficult ones. And while there were lots of people opening doors for me, there were also a significant few who closed the door in my face. And I thank them for that because I ended up being exactly where I should be, doing exactly what I should be doing. About 12 years ago, I went back to school to CSUB to get another master's degree. And I'm currently working on my third. You've probably heard you're going to need to be a lifelong learner in order to stay competitive. And I have found that to be true. Now let's get to what you probably really want to hear, and that is how to get a job. First, ensure your application, resume, and all correspondence, even your emails, are free of errors. When HR professionals are screening applications, the ones that have typos and grammatical errors are usually tossed to the side. I think that any job is better than no job, so don't wait for the perfect job to come your way. If you let yourself, you'll learn valuable things in every job you ever have. I learned some of my best job lessons when I was a waitress, which, by the way, was after I got my first master's degree and was working part-time at BC. You can also volunteer at nonprofit organizations to get some experience, learn some new skills, and make connections. Speaking of making connections, you should probably join LinkedIn if you haven't already. This is a website that links professionals for business purposes. Job recruiters post open positions and look at people's profiles and send invitations for interviews to people who look qualified for those open positions. And I probably don't have to tell you this, but I will anyway. Be careful what you post on any social media platform, because some content that you might post can prevent you from getting hired or cause you to be fired. Learn new skills while you're waiting for a job. As I said, I'm working on a third master's degree. That's mostly happening because I have more time on my hands because of the pandemic. Don't sit around, keep moving forward. And do your homework when you do get an interview. Find out as much as you can about the company before you get there. Common questions during an interview are, what do you know about our company and why do you want to work here? So be prepared for those questions. Also, you want to look like you're already part of the team when you interview, so your research should help you know how to dress. For example, you should wear a suit if you're interviewing at a law firm, but not if you're interviewing at a preschool. Review the job description, especially the list of essential job duties. Interviewers usually ask questions about your experience in performing the essential job duties, so have answers prepared for those questions. And at the end of interviews, candidates are frequently asked if they have any questions, and it looks good when you do have some questions prepared. Now, don't ask something like, how many paid holidays will I get? Instead, ask something like, what's a typical day like here? It shows you're interested in the job itself and not just the benefits that go along with it. And finally, follow up after the interview with a thank you email, or if you really want to get people's attention, a handwritten thank you note. Now, when you do get a job, show up on time, ready for work. This is the #1 pet peeve of employers, that young employees are frequently late and call in sick. And that sounds like I'm picking on young people, but I've got the data to back up that it's usually younger employees and not older employees who are guilty of this. Stay off your cell phone. This is the #2 pet peeve of employers. If you don't already know this, older generations were not allowed to even have personal phone calls while at work. So it really bugs older generations when employees are using their phones during working hours for personal reasons, especially when they're being paid for the hours they work. New employees are often handed an employee handbook and then never look at it. Read the handbook or other company policies so you know what the rules are and what you need to do to follow them. Don't be afraid to ask questions when you don't know something, and follow the directions that are given to you, at least while you're still new and learning your ropes. You'll make mistakes, just be sure to learn from them and let your employer know what you've learned. And be patient. You probably don't want to hear this, but it takes time for things like promotions and pay increases to happen. Just because you've been in a job for a year and receive a good evaluation doesn't mean you'll automatically get a promotion or a raise in pay. It does take time. And in closing, I'll leave you with my final words of wisdom. And this sounds like a cliche, but it's true. Life is a journey. Don't rush through it. Just enjoy the ride.